Hey, everybody. Again, this is your host, the whiteologist, Mr. Blows Your Minds, and welcome to Black Minds News Report. First and foremost, I want to say what's good to the fam, the subscribers that you happen to be in the house. Thank you for clicking on the video. Passerbys, if you happen to pass by, this is the most hated show in the black corner of YouTube. You can go down the aisle, happen to see some things that make you feel some kind of way. Remember, the motto of my show is the truth. Don't need no partner. Well, I want to talk about this and connect some things because there's a saying about people playing checkers and not chess, or in this case, chess not checkers, right? Right? Meaning checkers is a game. It's not like it's not strategy. You know, some people always say, well, like checkers is just like somebody simple-minded. There is strategy in checkers. It's just that chess is a lot more complicated. There's a deeper strategic. I'm not saying that checkers don't, because there's some people who play checkers that are very strategic in it, but I think it's a little bit more up in front. It's just how one person moves, but the strategy in chess can be, mastermind. So who is masterminding when we look at these events that have taken place recently? As you see on your screen there, you see that they talk about a man wanted for shooting the Daytona Beach officer in the head captured near Atlanta. Now, some of y'all might have heard about this story. Some of y'all may not have heard. But according to, there was a brother named Othal Wallace, a.k.a. I think his name is Ozone. And the story had broke a couple days back when they kind of showed a grainy video where the brother seen had been sitting in this vehicle, and a police officer supposed to have been, according to some of the details of the story, maybe patrolling. Not sure not, but that's just the way. Again, you get a little clip video, and you know what they do? They give you the play-by-play, right? They give you the play-by-play. They're not going to tell you what your eyes seen. They're going to tell you what they said that your eyes seen, right? So anyway, when you see the video, and again, I know I am not doing my normal. For those who are been on Black Minds News and been long avid watchers, you know what I'm doing right now until I get myself back into it. I'm going to do this way, just so that I can continually to bring some information that I'm seeing out here. But I normally put the whole package, videos and everything with it. So you have to just kind of be patient with me until I get back into that. So, but the thing is, according to that video that is out there that displayed the event or the incident that took place, you see the brother, Wallace, that was in his vehicle, being accosted by the police officer. The officer is questioning whether he lived there. And I guess the way that the officer kind of is up on him and being in a little secluded area, when you have in the parking lot and then the cars are next to you, and there's not a lot of space between opening the door and the car next to you. But just imagine a police officer being that close up on you as you get out the vehicle. And with all the stories and some of the stuff that I will display as we go on in this video here, to be in that little confined space with a police officer close up on you, I don't think many people will feel very comfortable, especially when you're not quite sure why the police officer is there. Now, there's some stuff that's said by the officer. The next thing you know, you see Mr. Wallace there, kind of like, trying to create a little space because you kind of up on me. He puts his hands on him. Next thing is kind of a scuffle as you see the video kind of turn and lean, and then according to what they say, as you see on the title, they said the officer had been shot, but you didn't hear any gunshot sound or anything like that. They told you what you've seen, and then the video cuts. So you don't see a police officer fall, you don't hear a gunshot, but all there was is the reports of it. So normally again, as I am a do Abbott News, and so my thing is looking at this story is, there had been a time where they tried to, label as extremists, right? And so as I go through this dissertation here, I'm going to show you the histories of all the articles and things that has laid out. And it's for you to sit back and observe, and maybe you might come to that conclusion too. But I want to show this. So again, a brother who they now has been captured, and some of the things that they talk about, they talked about in him as being, according to their report here, that he was affiliated with the organization called the Not Fucking Around Coalition, which is NFAC, right? And those of us who have been in this corner and been here for some time, not too long ago, the NFAC had its, it sprung into the black corner, made its wave, and then some things had just kind of made it dissipate. But I'm going to show some of the history as I go according to this. But again, as you see on your screen, they call them a nationalist paramilitary organization. Okay, and this is according to what the chief has said. And so that being itself, I'm looking at, okay, you have an individual who is being identified as a member or ex-member of the NFAC, and he has supposedly, allegedly shot a police officer, right? So, all right, so I seen another story where I seen maybe it could be a partner, could be an ex-friend, and he said some things in here that I'm going to go ahead and let you hear from his own mouth and play that, and then let's see what happens here. Let's check this out. Hold on, y'all. All right. As ad there, so we're going to go ahead and let that ad do what it do. And then as I'm going to show, is it showing that? Okay. Right, because you see where a friend of the wanted Daytona Beach gunman demands answers from police. Now, he was this. Now, let's listen what's said here.
$1,000 for information leading to an arrest. Investigators say the suspect, Othal Wallace, may be traveling in a 2016 gray Honda HR-V with a California plate. The search for Wallace stretches across the state and across state lines. A Be on the Lookout or BOLO alert is still in effect in the city of Atlanta, and that is where News 6 investigator Eric Sandoval is live right now. So, Eric, have police found anything yet?
You know what? We have asked Atlanta police, and they are keeping very tight-lipped about even where they're looking in the city tonight, Ginger. Meantime, a black militia group that Wallace used to be a member of that is based here in Atlanta is responding to an investigation that we first brought you last night. Atlanta police spent a second day on Friday combing the city for any sign of Othal Wallace, the 29-year-old wanted for the shooting of a Daytona Beach police officer, Jason Rayner, on Wednesday night. News 6 first reported on Thursday that Wallace, also known as Ozone, had been a member of an armed black militia group called the NFAC, headquartered in Atlanta, something Daytona Beach police acknowledged this afternoon.
We've been getting a lot of people giving us tips about Mr. Wallace and his background. I want to let you all know, we know about him.
News 6 investigated what unites NFAC members, and we found out its members across the nation are armed. They protest racial inequity and police brutality, and they demand police transparency. After our investigation into Wallace's involvement aired on Thursday, the NFAC responded, saying they kicked Wallace out of the organization in January. In a statement, a spokesperson told us the NFAC is a strong, law-abiding organization that does not espouse anti-Semitic, left, or right-wing views.
He's a great father. He's a great guy in the community. I mean, this has never happened before.
Brandon Oliver says he is one of Wallace's good friends. He believes there is more to this story, and he's demanding to know what led to police approaching Wallace on Wednesday.
They want him dead, but nobody wants to hear his story. Everybody thinks he's a bad guy. You know, he's a criminal and this and that. Nobody knows. They just know he shot a police officer and he's wrong. But you got to look at the first picture. Why was the police officer even bothering him from the first place?
And that is something that is currently under investigation. Daytona Beach police say that they have cyber detectives that are quite literally poring over social media, trying to find any examples of where Wallace may be. Meantime, police here in Atlanta are keeping watch. They are searching. We are watching that as well. Any developments, we will pass them along to you. Live in Atlanta, Eric Sandoval, Getting Results, News 6. Ginger?
Eric, thank you. Now here's another look at Wallace. If you see him or have any information, do not approach him. Instead, call the special tip line at 386-671-5555. Again, there is now a $200,000 reward for information leading to his arrest.
Okay. So we see that another brother, Brandon Oliver, he did that interview, and we say you got to look at the whole story, right? Because what happens is people will put pieces of a story, especially when you talk about on social media. Most people just need just a little bit, a little taste, a little lick, and they think they got the whole flavor to it. And so I had seen a show that I was watching, particularly that night when they broke the story, and there was hearing the story, people was in for prayers. When a brother's getting charged with shooting the police and is on the run, normally the high percentage of that, it doesn't turn out that they're not either going to kill you, but to some, miraculous situation happen. And as I go on more to talk about it, but we see that there was a question as to what really happened. Was it more propaganda as to the police being shot in the head? Because the reports are now saying that how he's recovered and they're doing more testing. And so was it more sensationalizing to heighten this up? And is there a reason, because of his affiliation with NFAC, and as I go along, there's some things I want to show, because it's not like somebody is not trying to, let's say, be a puppeteer from behind the scenes. Again, the wizard behind the curtain. And here was a great opportunity that somebody may have seen as trying to, let's say, light the wick to get something started. As you heard, that the NFAC had already stated, according to what this report said here, that he was no longer a member as of January. And so was this random, right? Because there's also the report that when this ordeal is taking place, was a witness that I did see that said that they heard one gunshot and then automatically there was police, hundreds of police everywhere. What does that sound like to you? That if a police is just doing his patrol and just happen to accost a vehicle that, say it's you in it or somebody else, and an incident take place, how fast could the police get there? Because either the officer is, radio in that he's been shot, or if they're there as soon after the shot, which, that says it could have been already, they were there awaiting, right? So there's some questions in that. And again, as this story develops more, now that he's been apprehended, maybe he'll get a chance to tell his side as to what took place. And then we have to say again, as chess to checkers, what is the long game? And what does this entail for us as Black Americans, especially Black men? What is the real goal here? Trying to utilize this in such a way, because as I go through this dissertation, I want to show you some other stuff. So here's a picture of the brother when they caught him. That was a picture that they had out there, right? Imagine, you have an all APB out on you, manhunt. They were saying at one time 500 officers was in seeking to hunt you down. You heard in the beginning of that story, it said $200,000. Let me say that again. A $200,000 bounty for any information leading to help them to apprehend you. So that makes a lot of people who, alert seeking for the bag, And so obviously no one's collecting, to my knowledge at least. As time going, maybe it might, but I don't think so, based on what they said where they apprehended him, being on the, what they said, they caught him on the area that would have been affiliation with NFAC. And according to that report that I read, it said it was 4 other people with him. Found him in the clubhouse tree, I think it was, or tree house. They're going to talk about being suited and booted and all this stuff, and finding other that could be legal, right? There's a possibility that some of that stuff could have been legal in the house, but they're going to, again, paint the picture the way they needed it, right? So with that being said, we have to look at, again, this history, because, again, NFAC hasn't been around long enough that a lot of people don't have any knowledge. Again, if you're in the black corner, you do what we do, you've seen some of the stuff in the back and forth with people and having their issues and problems and so forth. But I remember seeing an article that had came up back when the Telegraph had did this, and it was talking about how the armed black militia in America issue threats to build own nation. Let me say that again. The Telegraph, which is I guess you could say they're coming out of London, right? They're really coming out of London. And it had put this article out as really being one of the first articles that was put out about them. You got to remember, at the time of 2020, we're going through the pandemic, right? So here we are supposed to be bunkered down. Nobody's out and about. But then we see that this article, I can kind of show you. I think this article was more like this is like July of 2020. Right? So you got to remember, we on lockdowns from March, April, May, June, July. This is 4 months within. I mean, this is the heightened where the numbers are coming in and people, according to the reports, are just dropping and getting more sicker. But they came out with this and saying the armed black militia in America issues threat to build own nation. Now, what is the threat when you're talking about building? Right? Now, one thing is say black militia, but see, a lot of people always say, well, it's not about color. You guys always focus on color. But when they wrote this article, they made sure that this militia is distinguishing mark is that this is a black militia, right? And so they say issuing a threat, right? Because they want to build their own nation. So I guess in overall, when you look at a nation inside of a nation, what they say, 2 captains can't steer the ship. 2 drivers can't steer the car. So one has to kneel to the other. So this is actually 2 nations inside of one, and that's, in some sense, could be a declaration of war, right? So I remember when they put that article out there, and then you see they got that sister there, right? And they're showing that sister, a female member of the NFAC, right? And this is when they was in Kentucky for the Breonna Taylor situation, right? Out there when they was out the protesting and so forth, right? So, but you got to remember, see, they're setting at this time. Now, again, remember the country is being locked down. People are confined in their homes. Most information which people are getting is through social media. And then out of here comes a black militia group out of nowhere. I mean, prior to 2019, we heard nothing about it. It's not saying that they were maybe not in the background formulating, but becoming in the public's mind's eye as to the existence and so forth, right? So we didn't know about it, so it became known. And so, say a black militia, some people didn't feel good about seeing a black militia. They felt like that it was a stance as antagonism against the establishment. And then there's other people who have other ways that they feel. As I go more into my dissertation here, I will show you that. But they came out, it was stated, And then you've seen that the leader of the NFAC end up facing charges for allegedly, they said, was pointing guns at federal agents and officers. I'm going to say that again. Then an article had came out of Wave. It was talking about how the leader of the NFAC was facing charges for allegedly pointing gun at federal agents and officers. Now, this was back in December when this article came out. And that's what it was talking about. It said that the head of the self-proclaimed militia who protested in Louisville with hundreds of armed followers. Now, you remember, black people being armed is kind of, let's say, dog whistling to non-black people, right? That black people are armed, right? So anyway, and so it goes on, talks about the individual who is the leader is John Fitzgerald Johnson, or what they say Grandmaster J, and how that he had been booked into a local facility, and that according to what he had been, arrested for, appeared before a federal judge, is that according to this article here, was that a LMPD spokeswoman and advisor of the police said they recorded a particular person, I guess it's this Jesse Halliday, was coming out of a nearby building hugging a member of Johnson's group. So I'm not sure what that's about, but accordingly, it's supposed to be that the leader, which is again Grandmaster J, that he's supposed to had been pointing a gun. Here you go. Here it says, during the rally in July, Johnson also was quoted threatening to shoot someone who was on top of a nearby building. Now, is this the same situation? And so they saying this is in July. So this is July back in 2020. Matter of fact, remember the article that I had just showed you prior came out in July, so it must have been at that particular event at the Breonna Taylor situation. And according to what it says here, at 2 o'clock, Johnson said as he instructed his armed followers next to him to look at the building, assume the position. He said, I quoted as being stated, I don't know who the F y'all are, or the fuck y'all are, Johnson continued, but you're about to get shot. Now, these are the things that are written in there. We don't have the recordings. We have to go according to what they said, as this is supposed to be verbatim, or we have to say allegedly is said. And so at another point during the rally, Johnson told the crowd, if something happens and y'all don't hit the ground, that's your fault. I'm giving fair warning. My people will defend themselves if attacked. So, you know, people look at that as that's being, again, black men or black people with guns who are willing to defend themselves to the death. It's not going to be taken kindly and lightly in this country. We know that, right? Even though they may say Second Amendment, and we're going to talk about all that as I go along, and then, again, protecting yourself and being a black militia, which, again, I guess to be considered that there's certain protocols that you have to fit to be labeled and be recognized in that. So that's, And so it said here, it says he's going to say it publicly, we will not shoot you, we will kill you. Right? So now, again, black men threatening, again, right? And then who it end up being supposedly these were supposedly officials of the capacity of, police officers and so forth. And so he ended up being arrested for that and still is dealing with that. And they said a possibility of 20 years in the Fed if he found to be convicted. But now you have this situation here. Are they trying to tie that into him, right? Are they trying to tie that into him? It's possible, right? Or maybe not just him, but just the organization in itself, right? And so, with that being said, I got this also too, right? Now, again, we were coming off of the George Floyd situation. The riots is going on, right? The upheaval of the protesting, and so the racial tension that people were feeling that there was a possibility that was going on. And you seen in the Time article they had put in that that this racial tension is helping the U.S. Well, let's read it like this. Racial tension in the U.S. are helping to fuel a rise in black gun ownership. Well, let me say that again. Time article had came out, and this was done in November 2020, right? So I'm giving you a timeline of some of the stuff that is showing that this is all in a little short period of time all this is taking place. So you got racial tensions in the United States are helping to fuel a rise in black gun ownership. Black people were out here registering, getting FOID cards, carry on, gun carry card, right? And so the gun shop owners were, hey, what's going on? Black people out here buying all these guns, right? So it's becoming alarming. See, there's a fuel of rise in this, right? And because why? Country was seeming to be going up. You had the protests, even though there was supposed to be a pandemic, that the protests and the uprising and the stuff that was happening, people felt like, this is something nobody has seen. People were uneasy. So they decided, hey, man, let me go out here, let me arm myself just in case the shit pop off, right? And so you also you got to remember now when you're thinking about this, you got black people buying guns, which is civilians, right? I'm not going to say, we're going to say the civilians buying guns. You have black militia, right, being formulated. And some people may not even remember the fact that when you talk about the CIA, reportedly recruited blacks for surveillance of Black Panther. This is back in 1978, right? Because there were some questions as to the NFAC and its establishment and who's who and where does people come from and, so there were some questions. There was a lot of people who didn't, it's like medicine. They didn't take it as well, right? Some people were a little apprehensive. Some people questioned it. And it's rightfully to be questioned. Doesn't mean that there's not a legitimate stance. But, again, remember, March 15, 2020, the country gets locked down. By the time, June, July come around, you got a group talking about the NFAC and black militia. And then, the wave is rising in the black corner where it's being talked about, and there's people who joined the organization because, right? So the question becomes, and we always have to remember that there was a time when the CIA reported recruited blacks for surveillance of the Black Panthers. So if that can be done then, could it have been done now is the question, right? Can that happen again, right? Can we be naive to think that, they say if you don't know history, history is doomed to repeat itself. So could a situation that seems to be fair seeming being presented could be set up again, chess, not checkers? But, that's just for those who have far sight eyes. So when you think about that, I also remember when they had broke this story by Newsweek. Now this is before 2020. This is back in like August of 2019. And as you see on your screen there, we're talking about how the FBI ranks black identity extremists bigger than Al-Qaeda and white supremacists. The leaked documents. Let me say that again. FBI ranks black identity extremists bigger threat than Al-Qaeda, white supremacists, leaked documents. Now, wait a minute. We're talking about in August of 2019. What is the black identity extremist group? What was considered? What was labeled there? And to say that it was bigger than Al-Qaeda and bigger than the white supremacists means this is a big threat in the country. But what group is it? Who are they? You get what I'm saying? So where and why did they start putting this out there? Where did this come from, information, and who were they targeting? The only thing that I can, as being in the black corner of YouTube, there was the reverberation of reparations and what they now saying woke, and again the conscious and brothers and sisters who are out here enlightening their brothers and sisters. Was this considered black identity extremists? Black identity meaning those being, proud of being who they are, advocating on behalf of themselves, want to build for themselves, want economics for themselves, want to separate so that the things that they feel that they can't get any justice in. Was that considered to be the black identity extremists? What group was it? There was no group at this time. So this had to be a lie. But somebody had ranked us as being that. And was it just the people in itself more than a group, or was this something that was foretelling something to come? Okay? Was it foretelling something? Only time will tell, right? So then we remember how, again, we going through, the coronavirus is going through, and then all of a sudden this trope about blacks attacking Asians. Remember that, y'all? Right? We got black folks supposedly now, we the ones as a poster out here attacking Asians. It's Asian hate. And we're being a poster. And you got people, Al Sharpton, and all these people sitting there trying to say, we need to stop doing this, and we have alliance with them. But the truth of the matter is, was it really us that was doing this? We know it wasn't us, but it was portrayed that way to us. And we had to ask ourselves the question, why was they trying to put us in the face of Asian hate when we kept seeing reports that was showing when it was the real true culprit didn't look like the people who you kept saying that was attacking you? And then when there were people attacking you, according to even what y'all was saying, you see that they even got a hate crime law bill passed based on the falsification of sitting there saying that black Americans were the initial culprit and the most aggressive in all those attacks, or the lone soul soldiers who were out there attacking. But we know we kept seeing stories again where 9 people getting shot and killed, and we could see that them people did not look nothing like us. But somehow reason this helped to propel to get an Asian crime bill signed. Yet here we are to this day about something that I'll talk about a little later as I go on. But to this day, black Americans or blacks of America, the African Americans, have not got something as a legislator to stop some of the things that have been befalling us as a people. And some of these things that I will show you that, again, these are not my words. These are the events. These are the stories that have been published. So if anybody hears me, remember, this here didn't come from me. This came from them. So, right? So you had what they were showing, that half of the suspects that was arrested, when you talk about, let's say in New York being the second largest city in the United States, they're saying that the anti-Asian attacks are mentally ill. The people who were attacking Asians, they would consider them to be mentally ill people. These weren't just black folks who were just, this was some people who had some kind of mental issues, right? Now, again, that could be code words still meaning black people, because, again, that is kind of everybody kind of labeling it right now, that, black people have mental issues. So that could just cover blanket all of us. But we know the stories that we were seeing, we see that some of them people that didn't seem right. But why do y'all was able to label and put black Americans when just because somebody black, let's put it this way, I'm going to say this. Black don't necessarily mean black American, because it could have been black people who were, again, it could have been people who migrated here, immigrated from here. Didn't have to necessarily be black Americans. But when you blanket that, so we all had to carry that, and we as black Americans being in this country longer than most everybody else, other than the ones who've been the oppressor to us, why would we be attacking you when we patronize all the, the stores and clothes and food? We made a lot of the money that allow you to build towns like Chinatown and pretty much all the cities around this country. We have our issues because you have issues with us. And we're not going to say that people don't just have fallout here and there. But how did it become an epidemic that allowed you to get a crime bill when we've been here all this time and we can't get no kinds of legislation to do anything that need to be done? So we have to say, was this planned? And who's planning it? Right? Because I'll just put it to you like this, for y'all probably didn't even know about this. Because it's kind of ironic when it came with all this Asian anti-hate. Right? Then you seen when the little boy, the little brother there was the black Michigan boy shot an arm after retrieving bike from neighbor's yard. Neighbors arrested and released 3 days later, right? And this was a little brother that was named, what's the little brother name again? His name was Daniel, right? Daniel was his last name. I think his first name is, I forget the little brother's name. They just want to say black child. You might as well say his name, right? The little boy. I mean, you might as well say his name. They don't want to say his name. I forgot his name, though. Somebody in the chat might know his name. Put it in there. That might remind. So, but anyway, 6-year-old man, a 6-year-old boy shot by an Asian man because he had his bike in his yard. He could get out based on the simple fact that should have been attempt murder. Yeah, it might have hit him in the arm. But by the grace of the Creator, you lucky you did that. What happens if you would have killed the boy? That could have ignited something. So, with that being said, look at the attention that it didn't get if it wasn't for the black media in the corner to talk about it. It wouldn't have resonated with social media and did what it do to get them to go back and reconsider and do properly. Right? But yet, the main media never picked the story up and ran with it. And where was to show this? It was to hide that. Because you have to, again, ask yourself, who's playing chess here? Right? So it's kind of funny. Now, I'm going to show you something. Now, remember that, right? For a lot of y'all who didn't know this is going to tell you where that came from, right? This is where all this came from, right? Did y'all know that there was I don't know if we could say summit, right? But there was as you see by the Bloomberg article that came out in March 19th of 2021, it said a fiery start to U.S.-China talk shows acrimony will remain, right? Fiery start to U.S.-China talk shows acrimony will remain. Now, what I want to show you in here is something that a lot of people didn't cover. Social media, a lot of people didn't cover it. But let me show you something here. Let me show you what was said. Now, here it is. In this country here, we were being labeled as the aggressors and attacking Chinese, right? And somehow, some of them was actually going along with that so that they could get the legislation, right? We're not saying that they weren't getting attacked, but were we the main culprit as was being displayed and propagandized? So let's look at what their country said. Let me show you what China country said in this meeting between the two, that they said this acrimony they got off. Now, right on your screen there, it says the pair unleashed China's most critical talking points on the United States, citing the killing of black Americans and the Black Lives Matter movement as evidence of United States hypocrisy. Let me say that again. The pair unleashed China's most critical talking points on the United States, citing the killing of black Americans and the Black Lives Matter movement as evidence of United States hypocrisy. Now remember this here, right? This is here what was said going back in, this is March. This is going on the 1 year. Did you see how quick they got that legislation to say that Chinese were being attacked? Huh? See, the country, China was saying, hey, United States, you sitting here talking about us about humanity and human rights. You yourself is doing some things over there. Since you want to talk slick to us. What about this? And so to cover it up and being, being embarrassed, you want to portray yourself as being, everything that you selling democracy to be. But you got an issue in here, and I guess it says as long as nobody complaining, nobody knows. So they put it before the world and said these things, and they directly said Black Americans. And then we being posterized in this country as attacking the Asians. What cahoots went on to get all this going? Huh? Is that to get that white card? Is that to get the Asian white card? Maybe it has something to do with it. So now they got some protection. Now everybody's sitting around here with some protection, right? Anyway. So when we talk about this protection, then they had came out with the article back in March of 2021. Now again, all this is all in a short period of time, y'all. White supremacists seek affiliation with law enforcement to further their goals. Internal FBI report warns. I'll say it again. White supremacists seek affiliation with law enforcement to further their goals. Internal FBI report warns. Now here it is. The FBI is having a warning talking about there's an affiliation seeking with white supremacists and law enforcement that they knew about. So there was a merging happening. Whether, again, are they going to admit it? But the reports was out there showing that some of the stuff that's been happening and what we've been talking about, but we can't get no legislation on. But obviously they know it's right there. Remember, I'm only showing you what's out there. I ain't saying none of this. This is what's being reported, right? So, again, emerging with white supremacists and law enforcement. And so we can been seeing stories after stories of things, and right? But we just went through this, right? We just the other day dealing with how this sentence of Derek Chauvin and how he got the 22 years for who? Killing George Floyd. Again, the lynching that was seen around the world that everybody's seen the video of. And he got 22 years. And some people think that, well, that's a good thing. Some people say, wasn't enough. And it's never going to be enough because, again, this one can't cover for everything else that's been happening. But what's ironic and what's a little bit crazy about all this is that as I just showed you prior to showing you this clip here, right? Remember what it said that the FBI had reported, that there was an affiliation between white supremacists and law enforcement, right? There was such a thing, there was a merging with them two. Well, somebody said, well, okay, just because it said that, there's no proof to show that that's what it is. Well, as you see on your screen there, and it's talking about the George Floyd and, Derek Chauvin and getting this 22 years for the murder of George Floyd, right? But during from May 25th of 2020, do you know what they had the reports out here showing? Let me show what they reported. Did any of y'all see this? Now, this was of April 20th, and of all days, April 20th is what day, y'all? A lot of y'all think that's Weed Day, right? A lot of y'all, oh man, this 420 is Weed Day. No, 420 is Hitler's birthday. That's Hitler's birthday. And so they said there was 181 black people have been killed by police since George Floyd's death. Now that's May 25th. That's May 25th, and they putting this report out on 420. So you're saying within less than a month, there was 181 black people nationwide that they tallied that they said had been killed by police. But no crime bill, no legislation. Still no George Floyd Act, but even with that being said, I don't know if that's heavy enough, right? Right? It was out here. It just depends what you were seeing, right? So you got Reuters who had put out, because again, they talk about this reform. And so when you're talking about reform, one of the things that's on the list for reform they keep talking about was that qualified immunity, right? Qualified immunity, because they said, well, it gives them less accountability for their actions that they can hide behind. Well, it was a case here that was done in March 8th. It was said the United States Supreme Court rejects case over qualified immunity for police. Rejecting it, meaning that they're not going to tamper with that. And quiet is being kept. Do you not know who the one who created that qualified immunity? It was the Supreme Court. So this reform that they're talking about, and people want to talk about more about qualified immunity, where do you think that case is going to have to go in order for that to be, And matter of fact, when you think about qualified immunity, it's not just police officers that it's also protecting. You got politicians and judges that also fall under that qualified immunity. See, the officers, they found a way to put them officers to get up in there because they, again, sheriffs are the real, under law constitution, the sheriff is the real police, and these subsidiary police have been authorized through the commercial codes to be who they are, right? So anyway, they said, all right, so what's that about, right? So then let me tell you this. When you're talking about seeing how that immunity is, now, a little history here has to be the fact that when you talk about Andrew Johnson is the vice president that became president after Abraham Lincoln was shot and killed, right? 9 days after the but after the Civil War, he was killed, 6 days later, but 6 days later. But it was Andrew Johnson. Now think about this. If, like how they saying that the black militia wants to have its own nation, in order for that to happen, it's kind of like looking back at the Civil War, right? Like, in order for the black militia that wants to have its own nation to separate itself to be its own autonomous government and other things, that one, the United States will have to recognize that, and two, right? It would be kind of like looking at the succeeding from the Union, right? It would be like that. So that means the only way that would happen is probably would have to be, kind of same thing, right? But let's look at what happened in history as the reality of that. The reality was that you had the North and the South, right? And the South fought against the North wins. And normally you would think that if you fight against your country, you would either be deemed what? You would be either considered treasonous, which could be death, or they would exile you to some other place. But that ain't what happened, y'all. Now the reason why I'm showing you this is because this has always been the thorn in our side. Why we've always had struggle besides, we ain't gonna say the legislative part, because again, you have to think about judicial, executive, the judicial, executive, and legislative branches of government have all intertwinedly done a lot to do a lot of damage to us. So when we think about what Andrew Johnson did to the South, he did Proclamation 179. And what that did is it grant full pardon and amnesty for the offense of treason against the United States during the late Civil War. I'm going to say that again. Here was your original. See, wait a minute. Here you're talking about qualified immunity. Here was the original qualified immunity. The 179 granted the full pardon and amnesty of offense of treason against the United States during the late Civil War. And then here it is, you allowed them to come back. Matter of fact, I think that was one of Lincoln's fault that he should have done, which is he pocket vote when they had the legislative and the votes. Again, but we know. See, when people want to tell us and say, oh man, that stuff y'all talking about white supremacy and, and then privilege and all that, well, that's what this was. Can you imagine fighting your own and then coming back and everything cool? The only thing is you're just not going to be able to have the legislative power. You're not gonna be having the property and all that anymore. But you're still gonna be here. So who you finna be amongst? Us, them who you just let go, right? That's who we living amongst, huh? That's who we living amongst. The ones that who he gave the pardon, who was left over after the Civil War, who now don't have no property, they ain't got no legislative power, and the people who they used to subjugate are now supposedly emancipated. What does that breed? That's what we as Black Americans have been enduring the whole time. And still to this day in 2021, some of the stuff that we've seen, just as it said as in that article about the affiliation of emerging. Could it be as we as the descendants of that which happened in history when we talk about this Civil War, we the descendants of slaves? What about the descendants of those who are from this pardon? Are they still present? Are these some of these other groups that might be out here? Right? So to show you something that there might be something secretive going on in this country, Mike Huckabee has said something back in 2015. He said the Dred Scott still law of the land. Let me say that again. Mike Huckabee says Dred Scott still law of the land. What does he mean by that? What does he mean in 2015, which is just 6 years ago, that the Dred Scott is still law of the land? Dred Scott was in petitioning the Supreme Court, was it 1857? Right? It was 1857. I think 1857 when it ended. I think it was in 1853, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was in there, by 1853 to 1857. And he petitioned to the Supreme Court because where he had been, and they, Judge Taney said, hey, one, y'all ain't human to us. Two, you can never be citizens here. So here's Mike Huckabee in the year 2015, in the 21st century, saying that Dred Scott still law of the land. Is there something that's being played in your face and you ain't recognizing yet? And if this be so, then that's like slaves are trying to do something that some people are kind of figuring out, hey, what's going on with them? Now keep that in mind. Those who don't know, go read about Dred Scott and understand that this here. Remember, I'm only showing you what's already there. I ain't creating anything. I'm talking about receipts. Everything that I'm talking about, I done showed you the receipts. You can go do it, but go back, rewind this video, go back, read them articles, and do your own more research, in-depth research, and maybe you get a better understanding of it, right? So what does that status of what Huckabee say? And then you have now the HR 40 commission to study about reparations, which is really the thing that is really making a lot of people angry. These damn slaves are still acting as if like, wait a minute, you ain't happy with the fact that we just emancipate you, that enough? You actually want to be compensated? Huh? Right? This caused a lot of anger amongst people to the fact that, you have somebody who went out there and tried to write a letter to some people and demanding, and now it seems like he's going through a whole lot of things, was dealing with, people coming out saying things to him and his wife, right? I ain't got to say no names. I think y'all should know what I'm talking about. But the point is, now this is HR 40, and a lot of people say, well, man, there ain't nothing, they just studying, man. Why are you saying that? You actually falling for that, man? You thinking that this HR 40 is about something? They gonna study, the commission to study. Well, the reason why I'm saying this, right? There's a reason why I'm showing you this. Right? There's a reason for this. Because you gotta remember, if Mike Huckabee is saying what he's saying, that Dred Scott is still the law of the land, that means you still in the status of a slave, and now slaves are trying to sit here and trying to get paid, when yet you still under the status of that. And the reason why this HR 40, and I think this is why some of them don't really want this, because we just had this commemoration that just happened. It's like something spiritually is happening, y'all. There's some things spiritually happen that if you're paying attention, you might be able to see it. What are you talking about, Mr. Blow Your Mind? Well, you know, they just had the Tulsa, Oklahoma 100 years from 1921, right? It was the 100-year commemoration, right? We kind of seen some of that. I got a little video that I do showing them huckabucking out there dancing, the fiddle, and, you know, had right there doing some things, right? And remember the HR-40, that's Sheila Jackson, right? And so, remember, for those who didn't know, they had talked about the Tulsa cancellation of the Remember and Rise event, a Black Wall Street massacre shot down by money demand. Let me say that again. Tulsa cancellation of Remember and Rise event, a Black Wall Street massacre shot down by money demands. You know, they was kind of showing that like they gave them some money. Remember, they was proposing that well, give the survivors $100,000 and they was going to put $2 million in a seed pot, right? They were talking about that. And somewhere in those negotiations, I think that was originally said they were going to do, and they were saying they was labeling it as a gift, right? They kept saying a gift. They wasn't saying this is going to be the reparation. They called this was the gift. That they were going to give y'all a gift. So they went back to the drawing board and said, wait a minute, man, that's too low of money, man. You talking about for all that we lost from 1929 to come back and talk about $2 million, maybe $300,000. There was 3 survivors, and $2 million got split by all the seeds of descendants. They were like, no, man, that's too little money. So they said, look, about $1 million for each one of them and put $50 million in the pot. They said, man, that's too much money. We can't do that. We're not going to do that, right? So you had seen, like I showed in the video, where you seen them out there dancing and like, you know, you seen Joe Biden come and do a speech. So it looked like everything was good, right? But the truth of the matter is still there was no money given, right? After all that, still was no money given. But the point is, there's a reason why there was no money given. And I'm kind of wondering that nobody has said anything about this. I know I can't be the only one that know this. What are you talking about, Mr. Blow Your Mind? Well, let me show y'all somebody here. Y'all see that? Can y'all see that? Can y'all see that? Put that on there good for me, sir. Suit filed for riot survivors. This is back in 2003. You see Johnny Cochran shaking the hand of one of the survivors that was still there at that time? In 2003, they did file for reparations. And there's a story behind all this that a lot of people don't know, that I hear a lot of people talking, but y'all ain't really knowers of history. Y'all just skimming on it. You ain't really going in there, because if you really want to know what you need to know, as Black Americans, you got to be more thorough. You got to get in there and know it just like you know about yourself, if you know yourself, right? So in 2003, and you see they went back and updated in May of 2020 to redact a little bit of it, but I had got it early in the stages of it. But the point is, Johnny Cochran was one of the attorneys. He was the second in command, because the first one was, I think it was Charles Ogletree Jr., right? Professor that was at the, what's the same school Obama went to, right? Harvard, right? Matter of fact, I think he was Harvard professor for Obama and Michelle, right? And he was a lead lawyer, right? And a group that was part of this, that when you're talking about how the Black Corner, and you talk about Tony and Yvette from, ADOS, and then there was another group that was saying that they had been in it from the beginning. I think it was in Cobra, right? But they were back then in 2003 as well. So they was on that original committee that was going there. But the thing you got to understand is what took place. Now, originally in 1921, after the Tulsa riots, what happened is, I think in 1923, they went foul for reparations. Those who were the survivors and the descendants. And what the court did in Oklahoma is they dismissed the case, right? They dismissed those cases. And so here it was, this is 1923, okay? So you got 1930 roll, 1940, 1950, 1965, right? You got now civil rights, right? So 1970, 1980, 1990, somewhere down the line, somebody decided to say, hey, we need to tell the story of Tulsa, Oklahoma. So guess what happened, y'all? In 1997, there was a commission to study the Tulsa, Oklahoma City riot. In 1997, it took them 4 years to convene and come with a determination. And what they came with at the end of that determination was that the descendants of Tulsa, Oklahoma should be reparated as well as their descendants. And that was in 2001. Okay? So here it is, what you're seeing there is them going in 2003 to take it before the courts. Right? That's what they did, took it before the courts. So let me show you something, y'all. Let me show you something. So here it is, you see Tulsa race riot case to the court, right? This is March 6, 2005. Right? So now they done took it before, what court are they talking about? The Supreme Court. Okay? They took it to the Supreme Court. Now there's a reason why they had to go to the Supreme Court, but I don't want to spoil the killer yet, because the Supreme Court being the highest court in the land, if the Supreme Court says something, there's nothing that can overturn it. Am I right or am I wrong? So again, going back to what Mike Huckabee said, as into Dred Scott still law of the land, you know, some people are going to be like, well, you had the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment, but that's just an add-in, right? You still got some kind of clause that's kind of still inferior, right? You're not still, they saying that, why you thinking everybody else coming here? Anyway, so it went before the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court said, well, you know, we're not going to get into all this emotional about it. We kind of know the atrocity of the history and everything. We know what was wrong. But, you know, question is, we like, well, how come you guys did not file for this reparation case before? I said, well, we did. And I said, well, you know, I mean, that happened in 1921. Well, they filed in 1923, but it was dismissed, right? They said, okay, okay, we can understand that they said the reason why they couldn't file is because they said they withheld a lot of the information, a lot of the evidence, a lot of stuff had not been coming out. And then they said, well, how come you didn't do it? Okay, they're saying 64, 65 when you got civil rights. They said, well, still, we didn't have all the information. But in 1997, there was a commission to study and certain information that came out. They said it was also books. And they said, well, how come you didn't come out, you know, after that? Right? So the book was, the commission was done in 2001. So here it is in 2003. Now they before the Supreme Court by 2005. Do you know what it was reason why they didn't get no money, y'all? You know the term that they used to get out of that situation? Statutes of limitations. Let me say that again. Statutes of limitations is the reason why they don't get no money in Oklahoma. Went to the Supreme Court. The same Supreme Court that said that you, according to what Mike Huckabee said, that the Dred Scott is still law land. The same Supreme Court, the one that said about immunity, qualified immunity, they won't hold no case. And then when they went to Tulsa, Oklahoma, which seems to be a case that should be easy to do, slam dunk, everything is in its place, everything that qualified for reparations, but they got them with a technicality with statutes of limitations. Got them with statutes of limitations. Right? There you go. Race riot, recourse. See, they ain't say reparation, recourse blocked. Supreme Court refused appeal after decision. Huh? Oh, my God. What? Yeah. Couldn't appeal it either. It was done deal. So when they sat there and did that whole commemoration, and Biden went out there, and Sheila Jackson out there doing the huckabuck and all that, they were supposed to take that gift, and the way they looked at it, hey, we were going to give you $100,000 and $2 million. Take it or leave it alone. You didn't take it? Well, that's a done deal. So you might be like, okay, well, all right, so, okay, all right. Nobody never said that. Well, let's look at it this way. See, the thing about reparations is it's like looking back when you see here when they was doing the claiming for those of being the Cherokee, where you seeing white people were saying that they have Cherokee in their blood and they was able to get some of the money. Now, when you talk about reparations are coming back being, black, that means that's a downgrade. That's people have to give up their white card and talk about something they black, even though you ain't gonna be able to get it that way. But the point is, that's what you're gonna have to do. And so everybody, no, ain't nobody gonna do none of that. So it's gonna be a problem, right? And that issue here, there's gonna be an issue here, right? What they call the American greatest problem, the Negro, right? The Negro think he free in this country. Mike Huckabee told you that this thing is still what it is. And you pushing them in the corner that has to either eventually have to come out and tell you straight up what it is, because the game can't keep being played like that because you getting smarter, you're starting to know things more, but there's certain intricate, let's say the intricacies and the nuances of the game you still haven't figured out. So how they gonna do it? Because see, what you gotta remember is these mugs still around. Sherman, the one that was supposed to give us the 40 acres and the mule, right? Right? That was Sherman. But he had said this back then. He had said that he worried about the most after the war would be the young men with guns and horses but no land. They called them the young bloods. Who are the descendants of the young bloods today? Is that the other mugs who are infiltrating and being in all these things, and then they got these subsidiaries who want to be honorary and come on, help us get this and do this business for us because your ideology is ours anyway. So we don't like, you don't like. So come on, let's do this, right? Could that be what all this is going to boil down to? It's possible. It's very possible that somebody's playing this game to get us going there, and we have to be very mindful of how this has been done. So the one other thing I got to go back to. I got to go back here as I close out here. I know a lot of people said, oh man, they ain't doing nothing to study, but you got to remember, the Tulsa, Oklahoma situation had the same thing. They had a commission to study. Took them 4 years to determine. You remember what the Supreme Court ended up using this to get out of that situation? Well, our eyes on the prize have to be, whenever this get done, you got 2 years to get it in. You got 2 years to get it in. Because, see, go back. When Johnny Cochran said that he was going to go ahead and fight for reparations, he knew exactly how to get it. Because he was on this original one with the Tulsa, Oklahoma. And he seen how they got out of it. But he knew he was going to get out of there. But they made sure he went around. Again, I'm your host, Mr. Blow Your Mind, and this has been another Black Minds News Report, which we call We Up Report. Make your comments, subscribe, share. You can also send, if you feel like any of this is worthy of your time, donations or monetary to We Up Report, Cash App We Up Report, capital W, capital U, capital R. Okay? Until the next show, y'all. Until the next show.